What's up, DikPixers? I'm here reviewing the latest Rick and Morty episode with my good friend ChardBotham.
Hello, it's me, ChardBotham.
Did I say it right?
I pronounce it ChardBotham, but it's also a fake name that
Oh.
doesn't exist, so who gives a shit?
So, Chard, you've done two longish, scathing reviews of Rick and Morty.
I have. I'm one of the fucking fascist authoritarians who wanted them to do Rick and Morty differently.
I'm excited to get straight into it because I've not heard your thoughts on the season 4 premiere. What's the episode called again?
It's called Edge of Tomorty, Rick, Die Rickpeat, which is a play on the classic Tom Cruise film Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, I think.
Yeah. So, broadly, what did you think?
It's fine, whatever. There's
I
some
would say-
stuff I liked, stuff I hated. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I would say it's like the weakest season premiere they've ever done.
I think that's probably true, yeah. And immediately people are going to jump on this and be like, what about the original pilot? What about season 1? Well, fuck you. That episode's good.
No.
I like
the
it.
season 1 with the seeds.
Yeah.
Putting the seeds and the that whole thing and the opening, the cold opening is like really great.
Yeah.
So I really like the first opening and the original ending to it when they're saying Rick and Morty 100 years is like the funniest because it's the first time they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just want to start with this, especially as we were talking about the fact that I've made critique videos, which also I just want to qualify for anybody watching this. I don't think my videos are particularly good. If you're gonna thanks, that's very sweet of you. At least in my opinion, the only even okay thing I've made is like everything in the second Rick and Morty video from like 15 minutes onward. Like everything else on my channel is bullshit. Just skip it.
okay.
So don't think that I'm like holding myself in high regard in terms of my Rick and Morty opinions or anything, because I absolutely don't. But the reason I bring that up is because this episode I feel like directly addresses the fact that season 3 was criticized by people like me.
You think so? You think the episode speaks to you?
Yes, because I think that the whole point of the bit with like fascist Morty, where he shows up and Morty is like an authoritarian dictator trying to control the direction that the show is going in. And he's like, you will go where I please. I just want to have classic Rick and Morty adventures that are fun. And then Rick, clearly like the mouthpiece for Dan Harmon, is like, well, it would be really useful if you could tell me more than what you don't want. And then fascist authoritarian season 3 critique person is like, oh, I like Mr. Meeseeks because that was fun. And so in the eyes of the showrunners, like that's the extent to which people who criticize the show are willing to like offer constructive criticism, which I think absolutely isn't true.
What I want to know is what happened to Dan Harmon's amazing story circle in this episode.
This episode was a little all over the place. It's kind of
The ending was really like weird to me.
yeah.
But like to start at the beginning, because the opening scene of this episode is them sitting around the breakfast table, and it's quite like a weird scene to open it on, because it's like seems to me there's like exposition, because they do the exposition of like Jessica's like necklace, which is like an important visual part of this episode, and they also go over like the fact that Rick has like a chip in him as well, which is like relevant to the hologram stuff. And I think that's the whole point of that scene, because I don't get why they wouldn't have just started with them going to get these crystals. Oh, and also to show that like there's now roles on Rick and Morty.
I feel like that was the main reason for that scene, yeah, because that's brought back in the insect world scene, where Rick looks and sees the excuse me, he sees the family getting along and cooperating, and he's like, oh, I guess that's not so bad after all. And it's like, oh, how heartwarming. I guess he's like gonna cooperate now. So that was his arc, was like this weird out of place breakfast scene at the beginning, and then
but he
they
was
just resolve it later. Like it was very begrudgingly though, right? And then they don't address that at all for the entire rest of the episode until that one moment. It's like, look, he has an arc.
And also, like, considering like Jessica as well, they do have continuity, and like Jessica was in the spa episode quite a bit, so she's a character that they've actually like semi fleshed out, right?
I guess.
But it seems like she's gone back to being just like the crush character that Morty is just like in love with.
Basically, yeah. It seems like Jessica is kind of a more than actually being like a fleshed out character. She's more of just a symbolic figure for what Morty's life could be like if he wasn't so controlled by Rick, which like fine.
And
Whatever.
then like in season 3, like Jessica is there with Morty and like is sort of shown to have feelings towards him, and now in this one as well, they also like said how important it was to get female writers on last time, yet they haven't really tried to give her any character. She's just like this weird bimbo who's like really fickle.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that was one of the other things that I noted as I was going through it for the second time, was that the entire, it's like obviously the ending scene of this episode is a callback to seasons 1 and 3, the whole 100 years Rick and Morty rant type of thing, which they do again, but together this time. And then Summer walks in and goes, "Oh, this is a testosterone fueled thing, or you're gonna get married and suck each other off." And then they like yell her out of the room, and then the episode ends, which is it's like, to me that reads as the showrunners criticizing people who like themselves criticize the show for not appealing to women and like not having very well fleshed out female characters.
It seems like Dan and Justin are like very much on the defensive, because this episode felt a lot more meta than their other episodes.
Yeah, this episode, like...
Well, they're just like constantly like breaking the fourth wall in a way which is like more to save themselves rather than a way to actually like do a joke. Because like they have the news reporter being like, "Oh, in terms of continuity goes, we've just like reset," which is like the laziest way of just resetting it all.
Yeah, so it does. It seems like they're still playing that middle ground, which I criticized season 3 for kind of doing, like straddling the line between classic fun Rick and Morty adventures, as authoritarian Morty says, and more serious, like I guess the way that they think of it as posited in this episode is like political stuff and meta commentary. Like that's the way that it's described in the actual episode.
Yeah, he does say meta commentary in it as well.
And at the end of the episode, in that final scene in the garage, it seems like one of the things that Morty is ranting about is sometimes we're gonna have classic adventures, sometimes we'll do other stuff, we'll just kind of experiment with it and just do fucking whatever. And so it seems like they kind of haven't.
And that's what they were saying at the end of season 3 as well, which was really weird.
Season 1, but more streamlined, as they said. Yeah.
And then they go to get these time crystals, which I found it odd that they drove there, considering he's got the portal gun. But like whatever, I guess you could argue that he needs to load the car up with the crystals. But it's also because they need to crash the car for Rick to die. So
that's true.
Like,
did we just find a plot hole? Oh shit, guys! No, the episode is objectively bad.
It's objectively ruined now. Yeah, so I really like the idea of these death crystals. I think it's a really neat like sci-fi concept.
It's a good concept, yeah. My favorite shit in the episode
no problems with it.
Yeah, my favorite shit in the episode is Morty like feeling out what he's supposed to say and do. Like all of those sequences are really entertaining. And so that's the good shit. That's the classic fun Rick and Morty adventure shit that I crave as a resident fascist.
Yeah. And then it's here that Morty gets really obsessed with the idea of dying with Jessica. So much so that he's willing to let his grandpa, who is like arguably his best friend, like die. Yeah, there is no like conversation about how Rick like leads to dangerous deaths, which is what the opening scene does establish, which is why like the mum is like, you know, are you sure you want to do this? It's dangerous. So like Morty seems aware to a degree that hanging around with Rick is dangerous, but like there's no conversation about that.
Yeah, because like it very much plays those alternatives of the life where he hangs out with Rick and dies in horrible ways and is super mistreated and it's really dangerous, and the life where he lives happily with Jessica outside of Rick's influence. But that's more like it's more just kind of there as like a hint for stuff that they'll maybe address in the future, more than it's shown as like actually kind of a fucked up thing in this episode. Like I kind of feel the same way about Morty's Mind Blowers, the memory episode in season 3, where that episode could have potentially been a really interesting reflection on how Rick like cultivates Morty's perception of him so that he can continue to be seen as like a god or like a powerful figure and not like that bad of a person. And like really that's super, super fucked up. And there's a lot that they could have said about that. But instead, that episode is played very much as just, it's a bottle episode where we show fun, wacky stuff. And like, that's all that they do with it.
Because I was kind of, when Rick actually died and then Morty doesn't save him, I'm like, oh, okay, this is really interesting because now we're going to see like Morty living without Rick, which they haven't done yet.
Yeah.
But then immediately there's this hologram Rick character that's introduced.
Oh my God, fucking, this is the worst fucking thing. It's so bad. It
didn't really get any laughs from me.
No.
Because it was a character that was very different from Rick because he was such a victim.
That's the whole joke of that character,
yeah.
right? Is like this like hologram Rick is the SJW like trans activist type.
But they don't really
talks
criticize
about privilege and shit. It's so fucking
It's
annoying.
a cheap joke. It's not an actual, like, they're not making any kind of political statement or any kind of like interesting narrative statement about like this, because the end twist is that like, oh, I do actually want to be physical.
Yeah,
so
which
that's
is
like
which
basically
is really
saying
weird.
that SJWs or like minorities like do actually want to be white or whatever, like
white or cis or straight or whatever. Like gay
gay
pride or black pride is only a thing because like they have to feel that way. Like
because they don't have a
wish.
choice.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is like really.
Not that I'm like offended, because that's definitely not what they were saying. But like, if you were to interpret it in that way, that's the only real conclusion you could find from it. So to me, it's out of character for Rick, and also it's a cheap joke that doesn't really land for me.
I think that more than anything just reeks of like the writers' room bleeding their own sensibilities and biases onto the page, if you will, bleeding on the page.
So
check it out on iTunes.
I could get why some people would find it funny, so it's not really a criticism.
I mean, for me, it's a criticism because I just dislike the whole like the people who project themselves as tolerant people are actually the most intolerant, which is just like the current decade's version of, well, maybe the real racists are the people who say racism is bad. Like, it's the same shit. And I'm not gonna just say, oh well, just because some like alt-right shitheads are going to find that hilarious that it's okay because comedy is subjective or whatever. Like, I think that's kind of irresponsible messaging, especially if they're priding themselves on being a political show, apparently. Like, oh, these stupid people don't like it when we get political and do meta commentary.
But it's also anti-fascist, so it
yeah, no, it's a very
anti-
centrist position that they're taking in this episode, because they're like, fascism is bad, but also people who think trans people deserve rights are bad, which isn't like nearly as overt, so that's not absolutely what the episode is saying.
No,
but like,
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, but
yeah.
I get where you're coming.
But then it's also saying again that the fascists are like, I felt like the fascist messaging was there more to say that people who think that they like fans who think that they know what's best for the show are like fascists, more than it's there to actually say fascism is bad as an ideology. Although it does kind of take that as a given, which is like still good. So sure, it's fine.
I also sort of found it to be a completely pointless narrative element of the story, because it's not like if we didn't have it, we would have no Rick. So like, it feels like they just put it in. I don't know why. Like, they could have just had Morty like be freaked out that Rick's dead and go back on his own and be going with the crystal and doing his own shit. Like, his interactions with like the Rick character like aren't a part of what he's doing, because it's not like a physical person in the room that he can actually like that can change the plot. He's just like being guided like sort of by this ghost. So and it's not funny. So I'm just like, if they had taken it out, not only would the ending work better as well, but like I think it would also be a bit stronger, because it would have more visual storytelling as opposed to just like dialogue that we didn't need.
I agree, yeah. And I think that if they were going for more of like an artful approach to the premiere, that definitely would have been a good call. But it seems to me with this episode, what they were really trying to do was just have, like, they want to have equal parts Rick and Morty, because that's what people are here for. And show them both doing crazy, wacky shit. And like, even though they're saying that that's like beneath what they're doing at the same time, which... So whatever. So like I agree that would have been more interesting.
So now, and this episode also shows that Rick cannot die. like at all.
Yeah,
because if he
what
dies,
the fuck
he's
else
just
is
going
new?
to be, he's just going to come out as a clone in a different universe, which is fine. It was funny. Like
Yeah, I
all,
mean, he's already
like
been pretty
all
well
the
established as a godlike figure in this universe
yeah,
long before
all
this, so
all
it's whatever.
all the like different universes and the fascist shit like is really funny. I really liked it. Like
I like it once
um
Fascist Morty dies and they stop like beating on people who didn't like season 3. Like once it just gets to every single new
I
universe he
feel like
goes to as fascist. Like I
I
thought
feel
that was
like
really
the
funny.
I feel like 99% of the people that watched it did not read it that way.
I don't know. I think it's pretty overt. Like
Okay.
if you go back, I don't know, maybe we can play a clip of Fascist
Yeah.
Morty.
So, what are we doing?
Stop asking questions. Stop doing meta commentary. Just have fun. We're going on a simple, fun, classic adventure.
Okay, you know what? It would really help if you could just say anything other than what you don't want.
I like Mr. Meeseeks.
It seems very, very overt that the authoritarian trying to control everything is a stand-in for people who want
Okay,
certain
yeah.
things
No,
out of the show.
I did
I don't
see
even
it
think
now
that's
that you've
subtext.
said.
I think it's deliberately textual,
But
and that's
I was
fucking
la-
Dan
I-
Harmon just complaining directly into the screenplay.
The idea that like Morty wanted to go on this Nazi Morty wanted to go on like classic adventures was really funny though.
In and of itself, that's funny, but with the context of season 3 and the fan reaction, it's a different thing, in my opinion.
So
yeah.
now Morty has got this like time crystal, and these sequences are really funny, like where the crystal's like guiding him what to do, like when he draws on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
The teacher just says you get an A+ in confidence, and then similar to like season 1 premiere, there's like a bully in school who like wants to kill him. But it's not as funny because he doesn't pull out a knife, which was like.
And the
So
bully is
it's-
like oddly self-aware. Like he says
Yeah.
some like French term for what him and the other bullies are gonna do, and like the bully in season 1 says like, and now I'm gonna stab you because I'm
Yeah,
rich.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a repeat of that.
This whole episode is very emblematic of all the past premieres, while also just being worse than all of them. Which I think is what's interesting about it. It's like the same jokes again, but less funny and with more #problematic elements, like just interspersed among all of it.
I like the Mises coming back as well. They were well used. I thought they were funny and they weren't. Like,
I love the idea of
overdone.
a Kirkland brand Meeseeks. I think that might have been the funniest joke in the entire episode to me.
Yeah. But Rick doesn't tell the Kirkland Meeseeks to do anything, so really he should be going insane. But like, that's just a stupid nitpicks. Whoa, I said it.
Hey, he said the thing.
Hey.
Roll
credits.
credits.
So then this whole Morty thing is really funny. The only thing I didn't really like was that Morty sang a song to like get everyone to forgive him, because I just think they couldn't come up with what he needed to say, and they just made him sing, and they were like, yeah, that'll do.
That feels very Justin Roiland improv, and like it made everybody laugh in the studio like on the day, and they were like, yeah, that's good, put that in.
Yeah,
that was the
because
extent of the thought process.
And then
on
like
that.
as far as continuity goes, it's all been wiped. I'm just kind of like, well, you either have continuity or you don't. Like, and then like my biggest problem with this is that like considering everything that Dan Harmon knows about story structure, it was a bit weird that Morty then decides to go into the desert, and he's got a thing on his arm, and he presses a button, and then he turns into this like giant like tree thing. How in any way does that like lead to him dying with Jessica?
I don't know. It's what the crystal told him to do. It's the crystal, Sam. Why would you It's part of it's the plot.
Is the crystal evil? Like, is that what they
criticize that? No, it's just that he's gonna,
How would
I don't
he have
fucking
died
know.
with Jessica?
I can't defend this. I can't defend this even as a joke.
Like it's not even like funny. It's just like to set up like an end action sequence that like comes out of nowhere.
They're like, we gotta have an action set piece, and then whatever, just put him in the desert. I don't know. And then hologram Rick gets involved, and then it just ends.
And then that makes it worse. The fact that then Morty doesn't have the thing on his wrist, but it's still on the floor, and then it latches onto the hologram, and then he becomes physical. Like, I'm just so confused.
And he's only physical for like 20 seconds, and in that 20 seconds they make like the most questionable messaging of the entire show, and then it just fizzles out, and the episode dies.
Do you think it was just because Dan Harmon felt it was a loose plot thread if they didn't somehow resolve the hologram Rick?
I guess.
And also because the Wasp kills him, they wanted to make the Wasp got more Rick useful.
I don't fucking know. I think
well,
it kind of is just a matter of
that's
needing
the only
to get
reason
rid of
I
him.
can justify why it's even there. And like after hologram Rick is like dead, Rick says, he says somehow there's a lesson in here somewhere, but I'm not going to be the one to like find it or something to that ilk.
Oh my god! And then like 10 seconds later, they make the same joke where they're like, "What is this? Full House?"
Yeah, and it's like, guys, we don't care. We don't want a lesson. Like we as audiences don't feel like we have to learn anything. It's like you as writers that feel guilty because you've essentially written an episode that doesn't have any like kind of like lesson for the characters. Like that's why they've had to like mention it twice out of guilt.
Yeah, and like what I really hate about it the most isn't even necessarily just that they're bringing it up and like, hey, it's okay, we don't need a lesson. For me, it's more that like they're still trying to play it down the middle so fucking much where they feel the need to, like you said, like twice directly in a row be like, oh, we're not saying anything, none of this fucking means anything, going back to the classic limp dick nihilism shit that they pull every fucking episode. But that at the same time they're still trying to make statements about other things, again, like politically or whatever, and so it's like, fucking pick one. Like,
yeah. And then also during this end garage scene is like the worst joke I've ever seen on the whole show, which is when Jerry touches Rick and Rick says, now you have AIDS. And then Jerry's like, oh,
you skipped HIV? It's the most like, 2006
and also it's
joke
like, and also it's like
show.
It's kind of offensive and like needless and like weird. So
I mean, that's
I'm
going to
take 2 points off of that joke alone.
I think all the hologram shit was way worse in my opinion, but like that was pretty bad too.
Now you've touched me, you've got AIDS joke is like something like a 15-year-old would say. Like it's just that was bad. And then like they isolate someone's audio, and like when I watched it on Adult Swim, they bleeped the word suck, which I found quite weird. But
did they
okay.
Really?
Yeah, and the word arse. I'm like, arse and suck are like bleepable words. You
must have different standards over there across the pond, because
I kind of just feel like it's unfair that like Morty realizes that he can only be with Jessica when he's like 40. I just felt like that was a bit of a cop out, like considering the fact that she was into him right then. So like, obviously going skinny dipping with Jessica could potentially lead to them dying old. Like, I don't feel like him going skinny dipping with Jessica is always going to lead to a different death. So, that, you know, I felt like Morty, after killing all those people and like, you know, doing all the crystal stuff and letting Rick die, that he like sort of deserved to at least get some validation from Jessica. But like the way that it veers off into a completely different direction, into like this weird set piece, and then just ends with them shrugging their shoulders and saying like, oh, what is this, Full House, we don't need a lesson, like felt really really just like it soured the whole thing, because
it's very
like,
jarring.
I did find it very funny, and I did really like the Death Crystal like as a science fiction like kind of idea, and I did like all the fascist jokes, and you know, I thought it was like a fairly decent, like funny episode. But then when I was like thinking about like how the plot works, and I was thinking that Dan Harmon's like done this pretentious video where he outlines story structure, like I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like,
yeah, it's just after how long it took between season 3 and season 4, I would think that they would have graduated from their identity crisis a little bit more than it seems like they actually have.
No,
like, it feels to
like
me they're very much in the exact same place that they were, like the exact same problems they were going through in season 3. And I guess we'll see how it develops. Like,
and yeah, and then also it's only 5 episodes. What the hell is with that? I thought they were doing like how many? Like
wait, it's only
40?
5. Wait,
did you not know?
I thought this season was going to be 10 episodes. Did they say it's only going to be 5?
It's 5. They said it's half the episodes you deserve, but half the episodes we could handle. That was in the trailer for it.
And then they still have like 65 more to make after that, apparently.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of problems they had, but I think this season's only 5 episodes. But yeah, do you have any more notes on this episode? I kind of feel that's everything I have to say about it.
I mean, I just like, if they are actually going to make 70 more episodes of this fucking thing, like, I hope that they figure out what the hell that's even going to be and start to have more of an actual purpose behind it.
I just want them to just have a laugh and have fun and just like write good stories. Like, in terms of, because they're saying like we're Nazis for saying what we don't like about it. Like, what I do like about Rick and Morty is that they can just like do anything they want because of the amount of science fiction options they have. So just like do them like going to a different planet filled with whatever the hell they want, or like do an episode where like Summer or Beth gets addicted to a science fiction thing, or just have fun with it and like stop trying to appease like the fans, essentially. I don't know, stop being guilty.
While also saying that you hate the fans and don't want to appease them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, ultimately, I just don't want us to get like however many fucking years into the future, like 30 years in the future, and old man Dan Harmon is furiously typing away about how much he hates the SJWs still, and that this is just his mouthpiece for that. Like, I just don't know. Like, I just, like, is Rick and Morty gonna turn into The Walking Dead, where it's just like it never fucking ends, and like there's no point to it anymore? Like, they're just making it because they feel obligated to at this point. Like, I don't think the thing with
this crystal, I feel like this crystal had like a lot more. They could have done a lot more with this crystal if they had just like fully embraced that as like the main part of the episode they wanted to explore, and written like a story that doesn't just cop out at the end. But like, it was still, I'm glad that Rick and Morty is back. I was like happy that it was back. It's a really unique show. It's unlike anything else on TV right now. And I'm excited to see where they go with it. But this premiere was a little disappointing.
I don't even like, in my mind, Rick and Morty has kind of lost its status a little bit. Like, I think with seasons 1 and 2, you could absolutely say like, oh my god, this is like, it's unlike anything else we've seen, and it's so unique and original and hilarious and all this shit. And I feel like now it's in its devolved stage where other things are just clearly better. And I don't think that doesn't mean that this can't like recover and be as good as it once was, but like, it seems with this premiere that it's kind of still stuck where it was previously, and I'm not that excited about where it seems like it's gonna go. But I don't fucking know. There wasn't that much foreshadowing in this episode for what the rest of the season is gonna be, so
we will talk see.
Definitively about it yet.
So what would you give it out of 5?
Out of 5, I'd give this episode like a 2.5.
2.5 Pickle Ricks out of 5.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, because it's like entertaining enough.
I would give it a 2.5 as well. It's like pretty firmly in the middle, like it wasn't like bad, and it wasn't like particularly great either. But like, I think the good outweighed the bad, and like I would say like a solid 12 minutes of this is like really funny. But
sure,
like, the fact that it falls apart, like, I probably would have given it a 3 if there wasn't that AIDS joke. That really let it down for me.
That's all that shit, really, because like the bulk of this episode is just like an average fun 3.5 out of 5 Rick and Morty episode, and then there's just all the messaging, like all the shit that they're deliberately trying to say, like all the stuff that is deliberately textual, and all the stuff that's more subtextual that I was just reading into it. Yeah. The meta commentary. All that shit is really what drags this down for me. But I think even if you remove that, this doesn't have a whole lot going for it that makes it anything better than just pretty good.
Well, let us know what you thought. And thanks, Chard, for talking to me about the latest Rick and Morty. We'll be back next week with the next episode review.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about the other like 4 or 40, no, like 36 episodes. I know what math is, guys.
Chard and Sam, 100 years forever.
100 years forever. Get the fuck out of the garage, Summer, you piece of shit. Fuck you.
How dare you ruin our premiere?
You ruined the season 4 pod. Is this a podcast or is it just I don't know. It's not officially a podcast.
It's whatever.
It's
Anyway,
a talking
yeah.
about things thing.
Bye everyone.
Bye
Let us know what
guys.
you
Watch
think.
BoJack
Bye.
Horseman. It's actually good. Okay. Bye. Thanks. Bye.